Hi and welcome back to the Soul Shift channel. The thoughts I had yesterday about letting go of things were in the end very much about other people. But there is another angle to this, and it is about daring to let go of things in our thoughts. Not necessarily in reality, but in our minds. For me, it was such huge relief when I managed to let go of the constant thought that the worst thing that could happen was losing the farm. It was such a dreadful thought, and it kept me awake for so many nights. This actually happened to me when I lost my job. That was something I had been afraid of for years, and eventually it happened. Life continued, and it actually became better. But what I want to say about daring to think what happens if I lose this is that it releases so much energy. I think one of the biggest traps of being afraid of losing something is it is so easy to stay in whatever situation we are in simply because we are afraid of losing what we have. But I don't think losing what we have is really the issue. The issue is how we behave when we are afraid of losing something. We start acting out of fear, which means that apart from our frequency becoming lower, we stop thinking clearly. Our brain reacts to that fear as if it were a threat, which means it focuses much more on ways to escape the situation than on actually solving whatever problem is there to solve. So just in our thoughts, ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? What would really happen? Yes, it would be super sad. It would be so extremely far from what I wished for. But in the end, I would still have my family. I would still be the same person. When it comes to my lost job, there was a general feeling of panic every year when they let some of us go. Perhaps that way of dealing with employees just created even more fear. I remember how I felt then, that this would be the absolute worst thing that could happen. Instead of enjoying my work and all my colleagues, customers, and partners, there was always a sense of fear hanging around. I remember the day I got the envelope, I became completely blank. I walked out of the room with no emotions, no reactions, and contacted my lawyer. Of course, it was horrible, and there were these feelings of failure, and all those emotions I had to deal with afterwards for quite some time. But right there and then, it was poker face out of the room, and in a way, I even felt kind of relief. Of course, life went on. Of course, it was far from the worst thing that could have happened. And of course, things worked out for the better, because it was simply time. But did I remember that the next time fear showed up? No, of course not. Here's the thing. Once we allow ourselves to become familiar with the thoughts, once we allow ourselves to sit with the feeling of the worst thing that could happen, our brain relaxes and we can slowly walk away from that low frequency fear that keeps us awake at night and prevents us from finding the real solutions to the problems we have. Our thoughts and our brains, they just continue to surprise me. It is amazing how hard and in the same time how easy it is to steer our thoughts. Once we do, wow, what a different experience of life we get. Enjoy your day. Take care. Bye bye.